Can you hear me now?
I can hear you a lot better now, yeah.
I don't know what the hell was going on. When I switched headphones, for some reason, it wouldn't let me talk.
Well, I think we should probably just go with this because I can hear you pretty clear. Like, how do I sound? Am I fine?
Oh, yeah. Real loud and clear.
Okay, cool. Good deal.
Yeah, go ahead and start it out, and I'll rattle off some of these things that I picked up, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so we're going to act like that last 30 seconds didn't happen. And we're going to start it as if we just picked up right now.
Right.
Okay. Welcome to the podcast that explores mysterious disappearances, bizarre worldly occurrences, strange phenomenon, and basically everything that's weird. My name is Anthony, and I'm here with Brandon, and tonight on Everything That Is Weird, we're exploring a story that I've never heard of.
That's what I brought you.
Right. This is very interesting. I've never come across this on anything online. I'm on Reddit quite a bit looking at things like this. I don't know if you know, but I do write screenplays, so I'm always looking for weird ideas and things that I can mix into stories to make them more interesting. But I've never heard this ever.
Right. It is weird.
When did you hear about this?
I'd heard about it a while. You know, I in my head, I think it was still playing from like Unsolved Mysteries, the old show.
Okay. So that's the Robert Stack one.
Yes.
Okay, so I met Robert Stack. He was, it was like right before he died. And he said, "Are you here to be an actor?" And I said, yes, sir, Mr. Stack. And he said, "It's a tough town, baby." I said, "Yeah, it most certainly is. It most certainly is a tough town."
You've lived by those words ever since.
Yeah. First of all, that whole era of men have gigantic heads and tiny bodies. What is that all about?
I don't know what that is. I think it was partially the hair, but
nutrition?
It must be.
I'm not wrong though, right?
Right.
Like he weighed 150 pounds, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
And he had a monster head.
Giant noggin.
Yeah.
Good looking dude. I mean, he was right before he died, so he was old. I mean, he was in his 80s, I think.
Yeah.
When he passed, but yeah, I never did understand that. That's a phenomenon with World War II generation guys.
Yeah.
So tonight we are talking of the mystery of the ghost blimp. Some call it the ghost blimp of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little back history before we get started. This is a story about a blimp that was part of the Navy Airship Command.
Mm-hmm.
And its crew went missing, and that is the mystery. The ship is still there. It actually became repurposed and probably gave us Super Bowl shots from
all the way up to 82.
Yeah, right. Where it was decommissioned,
mm-hmm.
and then donated back to the U.S. Navy Aviation Museum, where it was restored to its state in 1942,
mm-hmm.
with the original control panel and all that. And put it in a museum.
Correct. And before this incident, it had done like over 1,000 trips already, with with like maintenance and light repairs. It was a good ship.
Right, and in general, these blimps that the Navy used they didn't have a lot of maintenance.
Mm-mm.
Pretty much once you got them running, it was minor engine maintenance, and hardly anything had to be done to the blimp itself.
Right, because outside the engines, it was a box and a bag.
Right. But they used these things. They were observation craft, basically.
Yeah,
and
reconnaissance.
Right, and the reason was because right when we got into World War II, the Japanese had sunk a bunch of our ships, cargo ships, battleships, with their own submarine.
Several of them.
Crew. Right. So this is before, of course, like nuclear submarines. They were able to spot them by like oil slicks.
Yes, in the air.
From the air, right? So
they'd also bombed a refinery in California around I think Santa Monica.
Yes.
So where that was like the first time that mainland had been hit since like 1812.
Right. And there's also I might be speaking out of turn here. They attacked Oregon.
That's possible. I didn't hear about that. I just knew that the reason for them commissioning, I think it was like 12 or 13 of those blimps, and they commissioned them from Goodyear. These were blimps that did shows and stuff already before the Navy took them over and repurposed them. But it was like 12 or 13 of them that they commissioned because of the threat of the Japanese off the coast and that they had bombed a refinery. I
did read that. I read that in several different places. Mm-hmm. This was kind of the reason that they were using them.
Mm-hmm.
So sidebar, there's only been one sinking ever of a submarine sinking another submarine. Do you know that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, ever in the history. And we don't have to get into that, but like, I just thought that was pretty interesting. There's all these submarines underwater, and they never fight.
Except for the Hunt for Red October. That was the only
except for when Sean Connery was Russian.
That was the only one.
Okay, so there are these ships. The Navy commissions Goodyear to build these ships. Specifically, one smaller one, which is an L8, which is what they are flying.
Correct.
And there's also a bigger one that they build, but that really doesn't have a place in the story and is used for other things, transport and things like this.
Yep.
So this L8, it wasn't just an observation ship. It also had a depth bomb, a 325.
Two of them.
Okay, you're right. 2 325-pound Mark 17 depth bombs.
Yep.
And they were mounted to the external rack of the blimp. So outside of like the not the cockpit, what do they call it?
Gondola.
The gondola, correct. It also had a 30 caliber machine gun, 300 rounds of ammunition, parachutes, an air horn, and a full control board with a megaphone and a radio.
Correct.
So the day that it was going to take off, there was a heavy dew over top of the blimp.
Yes.
And it was weighing it down. So they waited for the sun to come up to evaporate some of the dew. But because they wanted to get out fairly early, they did not send the mechanic.
Right. I was wondering if you caught that, because I actually didn't catch that in the first time I was looking through this.
Yeah, so I watched a bunch of different YouTubes. I've read a bunch of different articles on it. And each YouTube thing, I pick up like something else.
Right.
Hardly anybody has like the complete story. But in this particular case, the mechanic ended up staying back, and the two-man crew left.
Correct.
And they were Lieutenant Ernest Dewitt Cody and Ensign Charles Ellis Adams. Now, I feel like when people die, they use all three names.
Right.
Okay. But they were both Navy vets. And they were both married, and they had exemplary service records.
Yeah. Lieutenant Cody's commanding officer was quoted as saying he was one of the most capable pilots and one of the most able officers under his command.
Yes, he was super cool under pressure.
Right, and previous to, he didn't have a lot of experience in the blimp compared to Adams, who had like way more time in the blimp than he did.
Like 3 times, right?
Yeah. So he's got like 20 years experience, and I think he logged over to 2,200 hours. Adams did, the ensign, and Cody had only about 756 hours in a blimp, but he was going to be the pilot, and he had actually just received that commission. Probably this was like his first flight as a officer, I believe. That's how it went.
So he was a graduate of Annapolis. And one of the reasons why he received this was because he had done a cargo drop with a blimp
right
onto a Navy ship in the water, and there was high seas, and it was bobbing up and down, and he was able to maintain
keep it steady.
A steady ship while they were able to tether off and get the cargo off the blimp.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as far as anybody knows, these two don't hate each other, or they're not angry with each other, and this isn't like Adams isn't mad at Cody that he's the captain.
Right.
It seems like they're all okay doing their job.
Right.
This seems relatively routine.
Yes.
This is something they had. Now, okay, it's whose first flight is it with this particular one? Is it Adams?
Cody.
Okay, it's Cody's first one with this one.
Yeah, I believe, or it might be Adams' first one with this model.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what. Okay. So, another sidebar. You never take the first or last flight with anybody. Right? It's like a bank robber. Like if they're doing one last one.
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy.
You don't want to be that. You're for sure going to get shot, or you're going to get caught by the cops because you should have quit the last time, so you never have the last one.
It's like the start of every heist movie.
Right.
Just one more big score, Bobby.
One more. All
right. Yeah, so here's another interesting side note, and I don't know if you were saving this, Jim, if you knew about this or not. Apparently, Ensign Adams had received accommodation from the German government because he was actually at the Hindenburg crash and helped pull some people off the Hindenburg.
I forgot that. I did know that. I heard that. That was on one of the YouTube videos that I watched about this. So he's been around.
He's been around. Like a blimp is his life.
Right. If there could be anything that goes wrong, he's seen it. Literally.
Yep. He's seen it all.
He has seen it all. So these guys are completely capable of doing this mission.
Right.
And it's a very simple mission. They take off from Treasure Island. which is in the San Francisco Bay, right?
Yep. It was 6:03 a.m. They said the winds were low, visibility was about 3 to 5 miles, which is pretty good, and that their average ceiling would be around 800 to 1,000 feet.
Now, it's important to know that over 2,000 feet, you start to have problems with Blimp.
The Blimp has vents on it, so
right.
the pressure builds up because of the low pressure of the air. The Blimp starts to blow up, it'll vent the air out at about 2,000 feet, at a little over 2,000. So.
Right. And that is in order to bring it down. But they have ballast on this Blimp, and it's so that they can get low to the water and investigate anything that they see that's like out of line.
Mm-hmm.
But this thing, for all intents and purposes, is an excellent flyer. It's, it has, you said before, over 1,000 trips. It has typical maintenance, nothing crazy. It was inspected like days prior, as well as the pre-flight, and it was deemed in fine working condition.
Correct.
So it takes off. They take off from Treasure Island. Cody is at the controls. Are you having a party?
No, it's something going on.
But you said the winds, variable, nothing crazy. With the ceiling of 800 to 1,000 feet, slightly overcast, but the visibility was good at 3 to 5 miles. So I have a little bit of flight experience. I have about 40 hours in a Cessna. So like if you can see 3 to 5 miles and you're only going up under 2,000 feet, you can see pretty far.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good sight line and enough time to take everything into consideration.
Correct.
They could see the Golden Gate Bridge, which would be probably the biggest obstacle for a Blimp right in that San Francisco Bay. So they're fine. Nothing's fine. But they head southwest toward the Farallon Islands. No, I'm not real familiar with where they are. They're in the San Francisco Bay, correct? I don't know exactly. I'm not super familiar with that bay, but I'm guessing that they're outside of like Alcatraz.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it at all. So I think some of these places that I was even looking up, I'm probably going to butcher the name because I've never heard of them before.
Right. But anyway, they're positioned about 4 miles east of those islands. He sends a message. Am investigating suspicious oil slick. Stand by.
Yep.
And as we said, an oil slick indicated there's an enemy sub of some kind below the waves because there's some kind of exhaust. There's some kind of something propelling, whether it's diesel or gas or whatever. And it'll kick up fumes and fuel, and that
right.
basically leaves a trail.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was at 7:38 is the time I got that they had an exact time for that. 7:38, he radioed in that he was investigating the oil slick. And shortly after, at 7:42, the L8 dropped 2 Mark IV float. They were float lights. They're
right.
Smoke-producing flare. Kind of looks like a bomb.
Yes. Okay. And that is basically to mark where they are. Also to let other ships know that are in the area, because there are other ships in the area, both private and military.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of that, something suspicious is in the water. They don't know exactly what it is. They're investigating it, and in the meantime, here's where it's at. So the Liberty ship, the Albert Gallatin,
Mm-hmm.
saw the flares. They sounded their general alarms, and everybody manned their guns because they were ready for this to go down.
By a fishing trawler named the Daisy Ferry. Is that what it was? The
Daisy Gray.
The Daisy Gray. I wrote it wrong. Pulled their nets because they thought they were going to drop depth charges.
So the Daisy Gray and the Gallatin crews, they're on the watch. They have their guys are watching through their binoculars, and the Blimp comes down to about 200 or 300 feet, starts to circle, and then starts to get lower and lower and lower, till at one point it's at 30 feet above the waves.
Yeah,
as if they're like trying to look at something closer.
Right, and the whole time they're being watched by both of those ships.
And it's very important to know that the guys have binoculars.
Mm-hmm.
They're watching this airship Blimp, and this is fairly common sight.
Yeah, at that time.
At that time, because that's who patrolled that bay. They've already been in contact with air traffic control, and they've spotted 2 guys in the gondola.
Mm-hmm.
So at least at this point right here, there's 2 people flying the ship, according to both witnesses at 7:42.
Correct.
Okay. So they keep doing this. They're trying to see if they can spot a Japanese submarine or more fuel come up from underneath.
Now, do you think that sounded like a natural thing, like where, I mean, I guess with the times, but if you were like, okay, I need you to get on this Blimp, and if you see a sub, kick this bomb off onto it. Because basically that's all you were doing was just releasing this bomb and hoping that you could hit the target from a...
I don't know how much damage you do.
I don't know if you can even do it. I mean, it's like,
Right.
doesn't even sound possible, but I mean, I guess if you know,
I think in World War II, they're like, screw it.
We'll try anything.
Like, well, I mean, even today, they try to use dolphins and stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I don't know. I think that technology was like, we have to figure out a way to use it for something.
Right. And they were probably like, maybe they were like, oh my God, this is so unreal. Can you believe this? You know, maybe it was so new age for them that they were flipping out. But I feel like nowadays, if you were like, I need you to get on this Blimp and drop this bomb on a sub, if you see it under the water, you'd be like,
you get decommissioned.
Yeah.
It does sound crazy. It really does sound crazy. Like, but I mean, there's no technology. It's not like there's, sonar. I don't know the history of sonar, but I can't imagine that it was good.
No.
GPS was non-existent, so
it couldn't have been good if kicking bombs off a balloon was
right
the more viable option.
It doesn't seem efficient. Well, there isn't a Blimp crew now.
Yeah.
Right.
Little do they knew they could be called into service at any point.
Right. Oh my God. All right. So anyway, they're hovering above about 30 feet off the waves, which honestly in the Pacific is not good.
Yeah.
The Pacific is rough, man.
Right.
Like, it is no joke, especially that area, because you have like it's super. The reason that there's such big waves on the Pacific is because the shelf comes up super fast. So any small ripple in the middle of the ocean, by the time it gets close to land, it could very easily kick it up 10, 20 feet. That's not crazy. And routinely, Santa Monica and San Diego, routinely, it's 10 or 15 foot waves on the beach. And if you're out, you're out, a mile out off the coast, easy swells that big.
Yeah.
But nobody they don't seem to like see them get hit by a wave either.
No, everything they said it, even when they pull away from that level, when they drop ballast and go, it seemed like everything was in control.
So that's one thing I need to ask. So the ballast, are they sandbags?
I'm guessing they have additional weight they keep on there, and then they get rid of it if they need to ascend quick.
Okay, but then they do, and they head back to San Francisco.
Which got it had me wondering. Now I'm guessing if it's small sandbags, then they can't be confused with the body, right? I mean, like if they were dropping some kind of ballast weight.
I mean, they're back to what guys weighed in 1942.
Right.
I mean, they're big they have to be big sandbags. Because like later, some guy tries to stop it by himself, and he can't.
Right.
So they have to be big sandbags, but I don't know.
I was just wondering when I heard that, like, is there a possibility?
Are they 90 pounds? I want to say they're 80.
If 2 of those guys fell off the thing and they were like, they just dropped their ballast and they left, and it was really the 2 guys falling off the blimp.
I'm just thinking like any military film I've ever seen when they fill sandbags.
Yes.
They're like 90 pounds, right?
Right.
Like a bag of concrete.
Yep.
Which makes you understand that I guess you have enough to pull those up. Why do you have to drop them? I don't know. I don't understand that.
No.
Okay, but they do. And they start heading back to San Francisco. And so their last broadcast is at 7:42. But since then, there hasn't been any kind of contact. I guess 8:20 is the last.
Well, 8:20 was when they were the Navy was informed that they had been radio silent.
Okay, you're correct. You are right about that, right? So still 7:42. So we got like it's 40 minutes they haven't said anything, which makes you wonder like why. Okay, they have to be on it though. Because...
Yeah, well, they did, but the thing was this was a problem that was common where they lose contact with the blimps. The radio would they would lose radio contact with them occasionally. So the panic button hadn't been hit yet because this had happened before. So what they did was they had put out the word for people to keep an eye out and broadcast if they see it.
Now this is when they send like the seaplanes or the float planes or whatever to go.
Right. At some point,
put eyes on them.
Yeah, and it was at 10:49. A Pan American Clipper pilot spotted them over the Golden Gate Bridge, and he noted that nothing seemed unusual or out of the ordinary. It actually seemed under control and like it was heading back to the base.
And it doesn't seem like you would just be able to blindly send a ship over the Golden Gate Bridge. You'd have to,
right?
Because it's
windy.
It's windy. It's huge. Mm-hmm. The Golden Gate Bridge is so massive of a structure that even though you're in a blimp, I know it sounds crazy, but like you should pay attention.
Yeah,
because the towers of the Golden Gate Bridge, I don't know how tall they are, but they're tall. Right. I mean, they're easily a couple hundred feet off the water surface.
Right. They have a painting crew for the Golden. Side note: they got a painting crew for the Golden Gate Bridge that are under constant employ.
It takes them a whole year to paint it.
They got one direction and they turn around and go back the other.
God, could you imagine? Like, we're almost done, guys. I like to think that they have a party. Like they just get smashed. Like they get right to the end where they're like, they don't even need their scaffold anymore.
Right.
They're just kind of like standing under the bridge. You know?
I'd like to be the paint company that got the contract.
Yeah, I know, right?
Selling them paint. It's like the scaffolding paint in New York City. There's a specific color that it has to be painted, and like only one company makes it.
These guys are killing it.
Yep.
So the seaplanes, they see them. They have eyes on them right after the Pan American Clipper pilot has eyes on them.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, they report that they're west of Salada Beach, and they see it going up to 2,000 feet.
Right, and I'm glad you said that name first.
Okay, I don't know that I said that right, but I do know that at 2,000 feet, that's a problem for the blimp.
Correct.
It's too much pressure on the balloon itself.
So it's fair to say that that's probably the first time that the blimp seemed like something was going on.
But still, between that time and now, nobody's seen anybody fall out.
Right.
There doesn't seem to be any kind of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
They did drop ballast, but even that, it was under control right after they did that. They make their way over the Golden Gate Bridge without any problems. They're on course. But right now, they go up to like 2,000 feet. And when they get to 2,000 feet, there's altitude valves that have fail safes on them. And they automatically start to vent the helium out.
Yep.
As a safety precaution.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, you're flying a blimp. This starts to happen. You could use your engines to bring you below 2,000 feet.
Yes.
Okay, but that doesn't happen.
No, the people that reported seeing them close to the 3 miles west of that beach said that they were around 2,000 feet, but at some point they started to descend before they disappeared into the clouds.
Right. Okay, so
but all they said was it looked like they started to descend before they disappeared in the clouds, and they lost sight of them. Okay,
so then there's another guy that is driving,
Richard Quam.
Right, and he is in the Navy. He's just off duty.
Mm-hmm.
He's a seaman, aren't we all? And he notices that it's bent in the middle.
Yeah, he takes a picture.
Right, and that is confiscated. They take it, but I think that's the picture that we see, right?
Yeah, that's it.
So then, about 5 hours after it left Treasure Island, it approaches Ocean Beach, about a mile south of Fort Funston. One person hanging out on the beach noticed it's about 50 feet offshore, and its motors were silent.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sagging in the middle, and it was broadside to the wind. And at this point, it's only about 50 feet off the water.
Right.
So it, like a balloon, it briefly hits the beach. Its gondola hits the side of the hill.
Mm-hmm.
The engine, scrapes along the propellers.
Bends the propeller, and it jammed mud into the mud and grass and leaves into the engine.
Right, and then it kind of stops for a second and then kind of picks up and goes again and lands.
It hits and drop. One of the depth charges gets knocked off and falls down to the beach.
Right. It drops one depth charge on the beach.
And with the loss of weight, it gets back into the air again. And
then hits the Olympic Golf Club in San Francisco, the exclusive Olympic. It lands on their golf club. And the same thing happens, right?
No, it only lost the one depth, but as far as I know, it carried the second one all the way until it landed. Is what I heard. I heard the second depth charge was still on it when it landed. Finally.
Okay.
And it was I think it just went over top of the golf club because it went over the. They noticed, they spotted it, and then it made its way to the place where it actually finally came down. There was a small neighborhood that there was actually a historian that lived there, so he wrote on the incident himself at the time it happened. I don't have that guy's name, but
regardless, after it goes over the golf course, on the beach, and this is another side thing, and I don't know if this is true or not, but a guy had tried to stop it himself with the tether lines.
I didn't hear that.
No, and of course he couldn't do anything about it.
Right.
And then it hits. I read that it hit the golf course, but of course these are accounts almost 80 years ago.
Right.
But then it heads toward Daly City, which is a suburb of San Francisco.
Correct.
And it basically just starts scraping roofs.
Right.
And everybody's just kind of waiting for it to crash. There's like a guy washing his car.
He was waxing it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which
I don't know why that part stuck out so much in my head, but the idea that the guy's waxing his car. You think it's crazy that they're taking a blimp out to drop depth charges on a submarine. How crazy is it that you're waxing your car and it gets hit by a rogue blimp with a fucking depth charge on the side of it?
Right. That is pretty ridiculous.
It's an absurd story. But the guy went to save his mom.
Every bar that guy went into for the rest of his life, he's like, I got one. So I'm washing my car, and I'm like, sure, it needs a wax.
That's every time you wax your car, isn't that the truth, though? It's like every time you wax your car.
He's looking over his shoulder for a rogue blimp. So it ends up. So everybody they're watching it. It's the slowest crash in the history of the world.
Right.
And it does. It crashes. Right.
It's a power line.
It hits a power line and crashes right in front of this lady's house.
Yeah, and they said that the guy that was living there across the street from the guy waxing his car said he doesn't know how it didn't catch on fire with all the sparks and stuff that was shooting off of it. Because they said it was really possible for that thing to blow with a gas pocket trapped.
It really is. It really is, because that is like the basis. Although it's this is a helium blimp.
Yeah.
And the Hindenburg was a hydrogen blimp.
Yeah, but there was something about a pocket of gas I remember reading that gets trapped up in the top.
Oh, you can set it on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's an
plus the fuel.
Right, plus the engine fuel, which, by the way, they said the engines they're full of fuel.
Yeah.
But honestly, not a whole lot of damage done.
No. Nope. They fixed it right up. Sounds like.
But they get down there. The firemen are ready. They surround it. They immediately start. They call it the envelope, which I guess holds like these fuel cells. They start slashing them open because they don't have any sign of Cody or Adams in the gondola.
Yeah. But nobody took eyes off of it when it crashed, so it's not like they dipped out when it hit the ground.
No, and they had a perimeter sort of set up.
Yeah.
Not like an official perimeter, but everybody kind of just made a circle. And they had a bunch of people ready to help.
Now, there was a couple reports. I'm going to go back because there was a couple of reports that I think a lot of people, and I probably myself included, threw out of hand, that people had reported being able to see people still in the gondola when it was in this saggy balloon state where it was clearly something was wrong. There was a young boy who said he had his binoculars and he could clearly see two people in the gondola.
There was also a lady that said there was possibly 3 people in the gondola.
Right.
But nobody could verify that. I didn't bring that up because
right.
They said it could have been a stowaway. I don't know how you stow away on a blimp.
It's not a big gondola.
No. Where do you go?
No, nowhere.
Mm-hmm. So it crashes.
Mm-hmm.
It's down. They're in rescue mode. And up until now, there hasn't been any sighting of a ghost crew. Mm-hmm. But as we said, like it's had a journey. It's touched down on a beach. It got caught on like a plateau cliff thing. Yeah. Hit a golf course. Hit a couple houses and crashed in a intersection where everybody was around. They immediately start cutting the thing up, deflate it. Can't find the guys in the gondola. 2 of the 5 smoke bombs are missing. 2 of the parachutes are missing, but that's not crazy because all the parachutes were on board, but
I was going to say, I thought all the parachutes.
2 of the life vests were missing.
Right, 2 of the life vests were missing.
But that's not crazy because they wear the life vest the entire flight.
Right. Especially with their maneuver where they got really low, they would have been required to have them on.
And those life vests aren't like... No, I don't know if you know this. Those life vests aren't like... they're not like yellow life or orange life vest. Mm. They're these special life vests made for these pilots so that they don't have to look like they're flying a blimp with the life vest, which they have a water trigger on them. So immediately when you hit the water, whether you're conscious or not to pull the tab or not, it has a sensor on it. And I think, I don't know a whole lot about these, but I think it's when they get wet, it triggers an automatic inflate. Mm. Okay, but those aren't there, but that's not a big deal because these guys should have been wearing them.
Right.
There's a briefcase next to the pilot seats. Both the engines, as far as they know, after they looked at them, seemed to be in working order. Mm-hmm. The ignition switches were on. Everything, the instruments were operating normally. They had several hours of gas left in the fuel tanks. Mm-hmm. And for all this evidence, what it comes back to, there's really nothing wrong with the ship.
No, they did note that when they were surrounding the gondola, that the door was latched open and the radio was dangling out the door.
Now, see, I heard both the doors were closed.
No, they had a door that was latched open, they said.
And I didn't hear anything about the radio.
Yeah, and then the radio was apparently dangling out the door. Okay. So I'm imagining like one of the, the handhelds with the big long cord.
Right.
and it was dangling out the door. I read that on HistoryNet.
Okay, I didn't read that. I read that both doors were closed.
Yeah, which was I thought was weird because that takes me back to the guy that was the Riley Hill, the aviation machinist mate that didn't get on the plane.
Right.
Now, there was like a quote from him I saw somewhere where he said that he got off the plane and he latched the door and locked it and left, and they took off. So he said that he latched the door before they took off, latched it shut. I from the way they were talking, is apparently it latches open. Like, I'm guessing like a hook to keep it from closing while you got it wide open.
So maybe this goes back to the ballast. Do you have to physically drop the ballast like outside the gondola?
Yeah, and I think you might have to, if he was
that
trying to get a
seems
better,
like real dangerous. Like, why would you not have a tie off or something?
Right.
No, I mean, like, if that's really like the protocol.
Yeah.
You got to imagine, like, even then, I know, like, the quality of life for people, they didn't really care. But, like, even then, you would be like, well, maybe we should tie off in case.
Right.
You would have, like, a clip or something, right?
It might be like, hey, Adams, hold my vest.
Well,
I'm going to lean out, get like a better look at this oil slick.
Yeah, right. Hey, dangle me over there.
This immediately went into my head when I was reading all about this. You know, I'm thinking to myself, okay, 30 feet off the water. Cody's looking for a good look. He just radio in. He's still got the radio in his hand. He's going over. Adams tries to grab him. They both go in the water.
But they never find him.
They never found him. They searched the water. They couldn't find him. They and the blimp after that incident was doing like we said, like it flew over the Golden Gate Bridge. It looked like it was heading back to base. So
there's also several vessels in the bay. I mean, it's not like
yes.
You're not in the middle of the Indian Ocean. There's a lot going on in San Francisco Bay. Not only like military maneuvers, but fishermen. You got people just out.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody ever finds these guys a life jacket, a body, ever.
Right.
So,
and it's there's only a small window where people weren't reporting seeing them.
Right. It's an hour.
Yeah.
An hour or so, like an hour and a half.
Yeah. Which would have been in the middle of from when they took off from seeing the oil slick, and they actually maneuvered back up into the air and were flying back towards the base. It was
because the Navy immediately. Yeah. I mean, this isn't like they waited days.
No.
They as soon as like this went down, they had probably already scrambled when they went radio silent.
They did. They sent those a couple seaplanes out to look.
Right, but like I mean, as far as like on the water.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was never mentioned here, but like regardless, right when they crash, there's an immediate search for the guys in the water.
Yeah.
So they have Coast Guard. They have Navy ships, they have planes, they send out another blimp, but nothing.
Yeah.
Zero sign of these guys. And then they notify their wives that they were officially listed missing.
Right.
And the guy that's the Navy command, you know, he was asked if it was possible that this had been like an enemy attack because you know, this is like the Japanese fear. And everybody's like, is it possible that they somehow got up and were taken prisoner, you know, by a Japanese ship somehow?
Now we're talking slick. Okay, You're trying to tell me that I'm gonna go out and bomb a sub with a blimp, but there's a chance that these motherfuckers could get on the fucking blimp
and steal you.
and steal you.
That guy deserves a medal.
You got him off the blimp? I was just joking.
You think the guy waxing his car has stories at the bar?
Right, yeah.
Have you ever captured 2 guys from a blimp? I did.
Yeah. Out of a submarine.
It's not funny because they're missing.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is funny
It's too soon.
because it is too soon. It is funny because that was like a real question.
Yeah.
And the Navy officer, the spokesman, he says it's highly unlikely that happened.
Right.
And they actually have nothing satisfactory in the way of an explanation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
They really don't.
that's when government officials were honest, I guess.
Right, exactly. But they do a full-on inquiry, and they keep searching for these guys. And then 2 days later, they have under this investigation, this guy, Commander Francis Colonel, he basically says there's no fire, there was no submersion, there's no evidence that they dipped into the water.
Right.
And they had looked into the gondola to see if maybe, like I said, a rogue wave came up and, washed them overboard. But there's no evidence of that because everything was in working order.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get salt water on especially 1942 electronics.
Yeah.
They're real, but nothing like that.
Salt water on anything and you don't wash it right away, it stinks. So.
Well, exactly. Plus, there's no it doesn't look like they've been in a fight of any kind. It doesn't look like it's been hit by any kind of weapon. And then they get all the witness statements from all the ships around. Nobody witnessed anybody falling out of the gondola. And in all, they pull like 35 witnesses, get all their answers, put them together, and they come up with the same thing. They have no idea what happened.
Right, because the only people that saw people associated with that blimp were people that said they saw 2 men inside the gondola. Nobody saw anybody jump out, fly out, no parachutes deployed. There was a couple people that said something about seeing parachutes. But that was never...
but they were all accounted for on the ground.
Yeah, that was not corroborated, plus all the parachutes were on the gondola still.
So then the press kind of ran with a couple theories. Some people said they were captured by a Japanese sub. Some people said they were spying for Japan, and they were on a rendezvous with an I-boat to escape.
Right.
Some people said a stowaway overpowered them, and then they all vanished. Some people said this was like an AWOL scheme. Some people said one guy murdered the other guy over a woman, dumped his body, and then fell overboard. The rogue wave theory was kind of never really given any credit because, as I said, the electronics, everything on board was seemed to be, they had no water damage. And then and lately it's that they were taken by aliens.
Right. Of course, it was like 1942, so nobody suggested that they were gay lovers and ran off together. Right. Even though it was San Francisco. Wasn't the right time.
They've been having brunch since 1942.
Right, on the Farallon Islands.
Just living it.
I don't even know what's on. Is there anything on the Farallon Islands?
Volleyball.
Is that it?
I don't know.
I don't even know. I've never even heard of them before. I didn't even know they existed. So
I didn't either. But the main thing that people were wondering was, well, why did it stop at 742? What was the, they say that they're going to investigate this oil slick, and then all of a sudden, like zero communication after that. And then there's these series of weird, occurrences that happen after that.
Right.
Now, there is one theory about a guy that's been investigating this since 2009. And his theory is that the blimp had been secretly testing...
sorry about that.
It's all good. Experimental radar with microwaves. Have you ever heard that?
No, I did not. I had never heard that.
And that they didn't really understand microwaves, and they got overpowered by them, and it had caused them to tumble out of the cabin.
Like popcorn?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
It set off their life vests. They started bouncing off the walls.
But, the Navy never said that there was any proof of that, but why would they? And nobody on the ground seemed to see that there is experimental. But I don't even know if they would know what they were looking at.
Well, I mean, if we just got into a war, there's no reason why they would tell that.
Right.
But you'd think by now they'd be like, okay, here, the jig's up. Here's what we were working with.
With the classified... Like the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, you would think that, there'd have to be something. Because even Roswell, which is like, they've covered up and they've said, like, it was a weather balloon. Like, even with the FOIA thing, they've been able to, like, prove that they've been lying about the weather balloon thing. There was a weather balloon, like... thing in Roswell where there was like an operation when they were working on weather balloons, and it was to see the Soviet Union. It was to get pictures of the Soviet Union to see if they were doing tests so they could hang. It was basically to hang a weather balloon up there and take picture like rapid pictures to see if they could spot a test over the horizon. But they listed that as the whole reason that the Roswell thing blew up. But there was actually some kind of crash of some kind in Roswell. And since then, they've kind of pulled back on the weather balloon thing with Roswell. Do you know about that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. So, like, with that, there isn't anything that says that, they were dealing with anything or working on any kind of experimental stuff that would have caused this to happen.
Right. Even under that act, if it was aliens, they'd be talking about it, right?
Right now, the full disclosure.
Yeah. They're showing all kinds of stuff, and we just don't even care anymore. I think it's hilarious. There's so many stupid things going on right now. They were like, dude, launch all this shit right now.
Right?
Nobody's paying attention.
And it's crazy. Nobody even cares.
No, they don't. Nobody's paying attention at all. They're like, here's all this alien proof we have. And
they're like, you believe we don't have to wear masks now? Or you we have to get vaccinated, or we don't have to get vaccinated?
That's all. I know. It's like everything that's going on right now. They were like, this is the time. Here's when we do it.
I have a fantasy football league. All my buddies in California, and I swear to God, we say it all the time. We're like, everybody's like fighting about this stupid minutia about like whether you should get a vaccine or not get a vaccine, or wear a mask or not wear a mask, or is the Republicans or Democrats. Like, they're fucking aliens.
Yeah, they're showing us the pictures, guys.
They're asking us for help.
You were going to break down their doors to get this information, and they're just giving it to you. And
now you're like, yeah, aliens. Yeah. I'm not getting the vaccine.
Are these aliens vaccinated?
Were they in Wuhan?
That's what's gonna happen too.
I know it is. But this is where it ends. So it's very incomplete.
Yeah.
But where it ends is the Navy has, they have no explanation. There's no reason after they look into like their like what was going on in their immediate lives.
Yep.
That they had any reason for any kind of voluntary abandonment.
Nope.
These guys, like, there's no accounts that these guys didn't like each other. There's no evidence that there was some kind of fight or even that one of them fell overboard.
I don't even know if there was any evidence that the guys even really knew each other that well.
They didn't.
You know, so I mean,
that's why they right off the bat they kind of threw out the love triangle.
Right. I mean, it would have to be something where, unless you were taking that first flight. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself, there, Adams. Well, I've been banging this girl on the side. Her name's his wife. You know,
right?
Insert his wife.
Yeah, name. Right. Sarah, you say, huh? You son of a bitch.
Yeah, she's a filthy whore. You know, next thing you know, life jackets are exploding.
But as far as they know,
right,
that didn't happen.
Yeah, there was nothing there, so it would have had to have been instigated in flight, and I just can't see something that be so big of a deal that two guys would kill each other over something they just heard, you know.
So I don't know, man.
Today, I mean, if you told me today you put two people in the fucking gondola and they killed each other, it could have been over whether they were fucking, like you said, wearing a mask or who they fucking voted for.
Right.
Those two people could kill each other, but back then they were like, I don't know.
I don't believe that. You know, like one of the guys from Annapolis, they're not even in the same age group.
Right.
I mean, the odds that they would have any kind of anything in common. Plus, they were both married.
Yep.
You know.
He was a Hindenburg hero.
Yeah, I just.
And it's for all intents, it sounds like Lieutenant Cody was like, you know, gunning for the skies there as far as he's trying to climb that ladder.
Yeah, so why would he wouldn't risk his career?
Right. They said they even think that he showed up with a thick mustache so that he would appear older.
Right.
You know. So it sounds like he had aspirations going up and up and up in the Navy, in the ranks. So it doesn't make sense to cut his career short. It's kind of like our last discussion where you got all this stuff going for you. It doesn't seem like you just cut bait and run. So I think for both of them, you know, I think this was like
but like if me and you are in a blimp, you fall out. I mean, I'm a good swimmer, but I don't know if we've ever been swimming together. But like, you know, we're in the ocean. I'm not going to help you. Like, if you don't know how to swim, I would take the other life vest. It was, I don't know if there's a life raft, but I would imagine there is a life vest.
Yeah.
Or I'd be like, pull your life vest.
Yeah. Right.
You know, because like, what am I going to do? Tread water with you?
Now the bay, I'm pretty sure the bay is shark infested waters.
Yeah, but still, man, you got clothes. You got. I mean, it's rubber was used everywhere. So like those things, I'm sure were rubber.
Right. But I'm just saying. I'm saying like if you fall in, and I'm like, there's sharks. You know? If I jump down, I'll die.
Right. But you would immediately. I mean, I would say, you know, I got a man overboard, right?
Right. You would be on the radio immediately.
And I'll at least get, you know, one of the ships with the dinghy.
And possibly you'd be throwing out more flares.
Probably.
You know?
And maybe one of those depth charges to scare the sharks away.
Right.
You know?
Give it a good kick.
But there's nothing wrong with the ship.
No.
It goes back into circulation.
Yeah.
And it continues as a training vessel until the end of World War II. And at the end of World War II, they sell it back to Goodyear.
Yep. And Goodyear used it for a long time.
As like that aerial shot that you get when you're watching the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And at that time, I mean, by the time it got retired, it would have been filming from the sky.
So a lot of people compare it to the Mary Celeste, the ghost ship.
Mm-hmm.
There's just discovered floating, unmanned in the Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
And people still freak out about it today. And as you said, it was on Unsolved Mysteries.
Right. But we're not talking about a ship that wasn't, I mean, that's like a ship that just appeared with its crew missing, as opposed to a ship that was seen almost its entire flight.
Right. I don't know the full story of the Mary Celeste, but it went missing. And then just turned up years later.
Right. Just float.
This is an hour and a half later.
Now that could be as simple as that boat pulled up onto a beach and the boat got swept away in a storm while they were on the shore or something. You never know. There's 1,000 possibilities there. There's not so many possibilities here with this blimp because
and those guys are in Barbados or
right. So and there's tons of things that could happen out on the ocean where storms could break out and swells and all these things that could happen that didn't happen that day with the blimp because it was an observed day and nothing crazy happened all day. It's not like a storm blew in or high winds or anything like that. So
I'm at a loss, man. I'm at a loss.
I'm sticking with them dudes who are drinking Mai Tais on the Phelan Islands.
Playing volleyball?
Playing volleyball and banging each other, Slip.
In all honesty, though, okay, you really think that they made a pitch and they got out?
Right.
No, I mean it. What's your honest opinion of what happened?
I think it was. I think they both accidentally fell off the ship.
I'm gonna go the other way. I kind of think that maybe they were spies.
Okay.
Because it's really the only thing that makes sense. I know nobody saw them go into the ocean, but people did see them drop their ballast. And there was a report that there was 3 people on the ship at one point. I don't know why you would have to bring a person on the ship if you were a spy, and I don't know what you could have given them. But at that point in the war, we were not winning. We were actually getting our ass kicked at that point.
Yeah.
And maybe at this moment, what good would it do to say that they were spies?
Right.
It's the only thing that really makes sense. I can't see that they just fell out. There's too many people around.
But the spy thing was just so hard for me because of how they got assigned to this ship. It would be just a great coincidence that 2 guys were like, I can't believe we're on the same ship together and we're spies, and they high five and go.
No, they wouldn't.
It's just really weird, especially with how, like we were talking, how Lieutenant Cody got promoted for doing that maneuver, and this was basically his first time as a officer on a ship.
There weren't a whole lot of blimp pilots though. There's only I saw a picture of the whole fleet.
I don't think that's changed.
It's 12, if I'm not mistaken. And I think on this one there's only 4 that flew the L8.
Yeah.
That specifically looked for Japanese
submarines.
Right. What else makes sense? I mean, I guess you could say that they fell off, but there were so many people around.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people spotted them over land.
Yeah, but I mean, it's one of those things where you're relying on a fishing crew to tell you if they fell off or not.
But they have binoculars. Those guys are trained to, they're looking for distress.
Right.
So you got guys with binoculars. I mean, this isn't Titanic.
But if you're 30 feet off the water and, like you're saying, you got all them swells, you're even closer, basically, when the wave's swelling. And if you fall off, that could be an instant. And all it would take is somebody to look away for a second and miss the two guys going overboard.
Okay, I'll give you that.
And
I'll give you that.
How much weight is that?
It's cold. The Pacific's cold.
Very cold and shark filled.
It's probably you're talking 50, 60 degree water out there.
Right. And then you got to imagine, like we were saying, they probably didn't weigh too much. Those guys were probably about
right.
50 a piece, right. Most of it in their head. And but that's still about the size of one of them depth charges. And when that depth charge fell off,
but then what you're saying is they were basically the ballast.
Yep.
Okay, and that's what caused it to go. But then people saw them in the ship over land. And I know. Okay, so you would have to. Yeah, but then that would be like a Home Alone situation. I don't know, man. I'm at a loss.
Now, if you go look at that, if that is the photo with the bent ship,
right? There's nobody in
it. It doesn't look like there's anybody in it. Now you can see something, but it looks like more like a control stuff, something from the controls, not
on
not
the bent ship picture. Yeah, to my eyes, and I'm not trained at looking at blimps. There's nobody in it.
Right. Is anybody trained to look at blimps?
Yeah, I'm not at all.
Right. It's like the blimp pilot count. I think it's stagnant.
Right. It's right. They're still on duty.
Yeah. Those were the last. They're dying off. I don't know.
Well, there's only there's not a lot of blimps. It's like 12 or 15 in the world.
Right.
Yeah. I remember when I worked at Outback Steakhouse, they said, we're the only restaurant with a blimp. Okay.
Flex it.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So at the end, we get nowhere. These guys.
I got nothing. I was leaning towards the spy thing. I don't think they're gay lovers.
That's not my number two. That's my number two.
They probably fell off.
But they started the trend in San Francisco.
It doesn't seem like once you get up that high, like there's no reason to be AWOL. You can get decommissioned in a million different ways if you're that high. If you are somebody that is like that trained, you could say, you know what, man? Sometimes at night I hear voices and they're like, yeah, you don't fly anymore.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's real easy. It's real easy to get out of your duty if you don't want to do that and you're that high. Like, because they don't want to risk you handling materials that are, hundreds of millions of dollars in research and development because you're crazy.
Yeah. Just put on a dress. It's 1942. You'll be out quick.
So I got nothing. It's very incomplete. I hate that it's incomplete. If I was going to pick anyone, I would say the only thing that makes sense is they were spies because that's the only way you'd never hear about them again. It's the only way they'd probably go live on the countryside in Japan and nobody would ever know. Yeah. Really, I mean it. I don't know what else. I don't know what else would make sense. The Germans were involved, so they couldn't assimilate.
And they could still be gay lovers and spies. I could be right, and you could be right.
Maybe they're geishas.
They just lived their days out in Japan in a little rice wall hut. No.
And it's just
at night he'd put on white paint on his face and do a little fan dance for his commanding officer. You know what I mean?
The younger one or the older one?
Well, the younger one's the commanding officer.
They switch. Switch.
Yeah. Now you're the blimp pilot.
No, I'm the first officer.
You kick that depth charge into my submarine. All right.
Okay, so that's it. That's all we got. So next time, we'll try to have a better conclusion. But I'm out of it. I got nothing. I think this is a mystery. And it's been, I mean, the Navy does too. I found nothing on these guys anywhere else. And that's it.
God, how many people are we going to piss off with these?
I know.
Not coming to a conclusion at the end of it.
We got to have one coming soon. But, I mean, this one truly is a mystery. It's something that, like I said, I never looked into it before. And when I did, I was pretty amazed. And this is one of those stories that I wish I had an answer to. I feel like the last one we did, I felt pretty confident having an answer for that. And this one, I really am at a loss. I have nothing. I think in any explanation, there should have been some sort of checks and balances where somebody should have said either that's what happened or here's where they are, or some sort of evidence was found and nothing was.
Yep.
And that's why I ended up on this podcast.
Yep. Weird as shit.
So I am Anthony.
And I'm Brandon.
And this is Everything That's Weird.